The first F1 25 deep dive has arrived, focused on My Team 2.0. So we're going to delve into a full breakdown of every single detail in this video. Now for context, I was going to actually post a video yesterday breaking down the trailer and doing a second video talking about all the details today. But I recorded it yesterday, but this thing right here didn't pick up. So yeah, we're going to basically put it all into one long video here today. Now the best way to do this, we're going to start out with the article or the press briefing, which basically will give us some context and explain everything to us. So then when we analyze the trailer frame by frame, we know exactly what's being shown. Also, I have some insider exclusive info which may help. So as we know, My Team is having its biggest overhaul since it was introduced back in F1 2020. So after 5 years, they are essentially retiring the driver owner character, which is going to basically mean a change of presentation. And from now on, we're going to have a single character that not only runs day-to-day activities behind the scenes, but also jumps into the cockpit for the on-track action. Now, it's a bit like F1 Manager. Take inspiration and kind of, place yourself in that frame of mind. This is going to be F1 Manager, but the cars are drivable, but you're going to have, two drivers of your choosing, so you can't actually drive as yourself. Now then, it says here, My Team 2.0 sees you take on a more authentic, management-focused role in that of a team owner, which is, again, the new character, basically the boss. In addition to handling day-to-day running of the critical facilities that make an F1 team tick, such as engineering, personnel, and corporate, more on that in just a second, you'll be responsible for recruiting and managing a pair of drivers to represent your team. So again, confirming you get to basically, pick the drivers and race as them, which also confirms here. During the race weekends, you'll be given the choice as to which driver you'd like to take to the track. Now, I want to quickly focus on engineering, personnel, and corporate. Now, these three are basically the new revamped facility system that we had in My Team in the past. We used to have 6. We used to have aero, chassis, powertrain durability, personnel, and marketing department or marketing relations. And they've basically simplified and overhauled this into 3 departments. But within that, there's lots more kind of subcategories and branches and kind of different things you can do. So this is why they've done it. It says by managing the competing concerns of 2 drivers instead of just a single teammate, you'll discover what kind of owner you'd like to be. We believe this refreshed approach allows you to craft a My Team story that's unique to you, unlocking new avenues of decision making for you to explore. Now, I do like this. It's very interesting, actually. I've seen, some negative feedback to not driving as yourself anymore, and maybe that might be the case once we actually get hands on. But for now, I quite like this approach. I mean, this wasn't an issue in F1 Manager, so I don't see why this would be an issue in the F1 game. So now we're going to talk about those 3 facilities that we mentioned before, starting off with engineering. So the engineering facility separates research and development for the first time. So it's no longer R&D, it's R and D, as in they've actually split them. A bit like F1 Manager, basically when you would research an upgrade or, work on creating an upgrade. And then there's kind of the development part where it's being made and applied to your car. It's 2 different processes, which is going to be very interesting. And we'll see more of that in just a bit. It goes on to say, when developing a part you've spent time researching, you'll need to decide where to focus the team's efforts. So a little hint of what's to come in terms of how they've tweaked it this year. You could choose to develop parts for both drivers simultaneously. However, whilst this execution will cost less, it will take longer. So depending on your urgency, you might want to have to make a decision, as it says here. In contrast, you may wish to develop a single part for your informed driver so that it's ready for an upcoming Grand Prix. I would add to that, if you're fighting for a championship or a certain result, which may be important to you, this might be key. And this is a decision that could affect a driver's perception of the team. So depending on whether you do simultaneous upgrades or singles, it's going to affect this. And I've got something very interesting, or a theory, which we'll talk about later on when analysing the trailer. It confirms that you want to keep in mind, you want to try and stay on their good side ahead of any contract negotiations. So again, it's all going to have a knock-on effect. Reflecting the changes made to the real-world sport, your team's placement in the Constructors' Championship will impact your resource points income. So I believe believe that means a bit like we have the new system where basically the teams at the back of the constructors get more wind tunnel, or in this case more R&D points, whereas the teams at the top who win the championship will have less. I'm understanding that's how it's going to be the case. And it says here, whether you're currently at the bottom of the standings, the bottom or somewhere in between, your R&D point income will be adjusted accordingly, with the teams at the top of the standings having fewer R&D points to propel their R&D efforts, and those at the bottom having more. So exactly that, exactly what we want. We then go to the personnel facility, which introduces a new driver contract system with unique outcomes, giving you the opportunity to negotiate with multiple drivers on the approach to a contract window, which is excellent because in the past, you basically would do a very short auction or negotiation. To be fair, I'm talking about my team here. So in the past, in my team, it would literally just be like a quick little bidding war, auction to try and sign a driver, and it would be over within a day. And then obviously recently F1 24 we had the driver career revamp, and you had the new cutscene with the secret meetings and stuff. So I'm guessing they basically applied some of that to my team, but it does note with multiple drivers, so it's not just going to be a single negotiation, which is much more exciting. And hopefully you can have some leverage or kind of, negotiate certain terms and say, look, this driver's giving me this driver's giving me this. I can, play with those options a little bit. This updated system is influenced by how you interact with different drivers, whether that means your own ones or different ones in the paddock or on the grid. Again, that might tie into the upgrades as well when you're negotiating contracts, as mentioned before, by taking some time to meet multiple drivers face to face, aka secret meetings as we know, to discuss terms. You can figure out the best lineup for your future team, but be careful, having the news of these conversations leaked to other drivers might spell disaster for your hiring prospects. So exactly that, a copy paste from F1 24 driver career basically applied to my team. There are plenty of talented staff that make up your team, not just the drivers that tally up the championship points on race weekends. This is your workforce, the men and women who put in the hours behind the scenes. So this is key. Again, if we go back to the F1 manager reference, you're going to have staff and you're going to basically get to manage them or adjust them. Again, we'll talk about that in the trailer later on with visual examples. But it says, naturally, the more you have on your payroll, the greater the cost, with upsides being fast development of parts and reduced build facility improvement times, just to name a couple. Balancing your workforce is crucial to success, so be sure to keep an eye out for your finances and not to exceed the cost cap. Finally, absolutely massive confirmation of the cost cap in game. So finally, those funds, which really meant nothing in the past besides essentially your contract negotiations with your teammate, now mean something. And there's actual, consequences. In the past, genuinely, I never had financial trouble. I never ran into issues where I had to close a facility for, being overspent or, in debt. So I hope we do get a bit of this. So we're going to have basically scaled resource points a la, real life regulations, and hopefully also cost cap, cash flow, cash payouts, all that stuff is all scaled just like in real life. And of course it's interesting because you basically have to, like F1 Manager, allocate staff to certain things depending on the degree of importance, but again, without exceeding cash flow. And then we go to the last one, which is corporate, and this is the finance management of the team. So by spreading your outgoings effectively throughout the season, you'll keep your head above water, so review your spending often. The facility is also where you'll be able to customize your team's livery using the new decal editor. So we now have the new Team HQ, the base of operations. So here it says, triggering upgrades and resolving contract negotiations with drivers earns you XP as a team owner. Again, we get a visual example in the trailer, which then can be used to unlock further training points to tailor your personal management style. So in a nutshell, what they're hinting at here is basically you have your two drivers and you have to manage them, but also you have to manage yourself as an owner, as the boss. So you're going to have to allocate points. Imagine it basically as in past my teams, you had driver perks. Basically now you have owner perks. Now this is interesting, strategic responsibility. So because we've now retired the driver owner, this opens up some new strategic responsibilities that would have previously been out of your hands, bringing you closer to the real life sport than ever before. I've always wanted to basically have team radio control, or basically, the same thing always happens in a race. If you have a scheduled pit stop lap and you choose to extend by 1 lap, your teammate will not adapt his strategy. He'll just box on the lap he's preset to go. Like, you should be able to tell your teammate, I'm going to go 1 lap longer, so please box now, a lap earlier than what you were planning to go, or I'm going to box in a lap's time, can you box in 2 laps? Basically, a bit more control, team orders. Imagine you're closing in on the end of the season with a shot of glory in both the drivers and constructors titles. Would you prefer to take control of your star driver to win that driver's championship, or pick the more weaker driver to make sure you get a share spread of points, and you can basically try and win the constructors title and get a better result with your team in general and outperform your rivals? I just hope, again, we get a bit more than just that in terms of if that's what they consider strategic responsibility, which is basically picking one driver or another. I just hope there's a bit more layers to that. Now, we have developed a fan base, which is basically in Driver Career and F1 24, they introduced the accolade system, which is making a return in this game, and it's now part of my team. So by earning these accolades, you're increasing your fan rating. Now, this is important. I want to take a big break here. The fan rating is basically historically the acclaim system. They've replaced it, and this is now you're going to be your main metric as a team. So in the top right of the menu, you'll see in a minute, your ranking, your level, your rating as a team is going to be your fan rating. So bear that in mind from now on as the new concept. And the accolades, they actually were pretty good in F1 24 Driver Career. When I was doing my Hamilton career mode, they were very helpful in terms of pushing you over the line on your driver level, or your driver, I want to say your acclaim rating. And basically it would push you over to, let's say, 91 overall, 92 or 93 if you hit certain goals like winning 10 races or getting 10 poles or winning a championship. And it says literally you'll increase your fan rating, which can be boosted further if you come out on top in any rivalries that develop between your team and your closest competitors. So essentially replacing individual driver rivalries, you're going to have team-to-team rivalries. And as your fan rating progresses, you'll gain ongoing perks to make your team more effective, unlock the possibility of signing new lucrative title sponsors, and may find it easier to sign more prestigious drivers. So now, just to quickly round up, we have familiar faces and new possibilities. So both my team and Driver Career will benefit from a significant change to the driver icon system, which basically means for the first time, the AI teams can actually recruit driver icons. So it gives some examples of Schumacher and Ferrari, Senna and McLaren, but it notes this change, along with my team's specific features such as the new contract system mentioned earlier, and a new option that allows you to increase the frequency of driver transfers. Let's pause here for a second. They've put in a slider which you can now choose the frequency and I guess the chaos level of the driver transfers. I think there's 3 or maybe 4 settings, but yeah, we're basically going to get that adjustability, customizability. Still haven't seen it in action yet, but that's a very good sign for those asking for improved driver transfers. And not only that, but for my team, you can choose to take ownership of one of these 2 teams in your pursuit of the constructors title. So essentially, if I understand this correctly, in Driver Career, you can actually not even drive as them, but have basically an extra team on the grid. So 22 cars, and that could be Connor Sport or Apex GP. And then in my team, you get to pick your own team, Connor Sport or Apex, as teams to manage, which is pretty cool. So hopefully this opens the door with you being able to manage Connor Sport and Apex. You can also manage Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull in the future. Right then, now we're going to jump into the trailer, and I'm going to basically do a somewhat frame-by-frame analysis or pause when I think there's relevant information based off the article we've just gone through and some notes, inside information that I have, which I think will help you guys. Now, here's a little look at the My Team car, and it mentioned before regarding the customization. All you've got to do is look at this. Look how sick this livery looks, and then within that, look at the sponsorship arrangement. The Xenon on the side is kind of, angled, satellite, Scaliaro. Then you've got Xenon with the kind of lines going through it. Everything looks custom, and actually the number, I believe, also is customizable. Also, we've got the new multiplayer or FOM or My Team car chassis. The car shape has changed this year, which we've mentioned before. So new front wing, new front nose, new mirrors, new rear wing, new side pod, new engine cover. Basically top to bottom entirely changed. You can see also the sponsors here. Look at the halo, 2 sponsors on the halo there. Also the mirrors on the nose, you've got 1, 2, the custom number, and then you've got these other sponsors here kind of sideways. So a real level of customization. 3 more sponsors, 4 really on the halo here as well. So a really nice degree of customization, which I absolutely love in terms of My Team. Now here is the HQ. I kind of veered away from looking at the pictures in the article before to focus on the video. So this is your new office, and this person on the right is yourself. This is the team owner. This is our character, who you're going to be in the career mode. And it goes on to this next frame where this is the fan rating. So this is also in the top right, which I mentioned before, is your level, your team's rank or level. The key thing here, which isn't mentioned in the article, which I do believe is important, is sentiment. Now, this is basically another way of tracking your reputation within the paddock. Now, the way your fan rating is going to go up or down is entirely dependent on the sentiment system, which, keep this in mind, remember this later on, we'll come back to this, but sentiment is what works, or what ranks your fan rating as a team owner. And then within this, of course, you have your different tabs. Messages, owner training, which we'll get into that later on. There's a bit of a preview of that in the trailer. Your fan rating tab, performance and results. Now here we get a little vista showing off the main hub of your HQ, and within this there's something very interesting which I noticed, and I don't want to read into it too much, but it says here, testing regulation changes. Is there testing in the game? Or maybe something that could be coming in the future. You never know. Anyway, here is the 3 facilities, the new kind of, revamped system, which we'll get into as well in just a bit. But you've got the engineering facility improvement, you've got the corporate facility improvement, you've got 2 upgrades arriving here as well. So we're going to quickly rattle through these. We have engineering, which is the next frame. This is the first one. You can see here, again, take inspiration or use F1 Manager as context, right? So this is currently phase 2. Phase 3 unlocks at workforce 405. So right now the workforce is 363, and currently within the engineering department there's 138 staff allocated to this. So the rest are split up between the other 2 departments. Also within this engineering tab, the things you're going to be doing here is research, development, assign upgrades, progress history, component management, and facility improvements. Then closely following we have personnel, which is the next one. This one also phase 2 has 78 staff out of a potential 210 allocated to it. Phase 3 would unlock 270, and here you work on your drivers, your workforce or your staff, and your facility improvements, which is going to be the case this one for every single one, so bear that in mind. And then finally we have corporate, and again this one is title sponsor, finances, customization. So again, this is where you kind of give a bit more of a personal touch to your team and make sure the numbers are being crunched correctly. So here we get a little cutscene, which to be fair is the exact same one from the past. It's when you start a My Team career, the 2 drivers walk into the office, which would have been yourself and somebody else. You've got the emails on the left, you've got performance debrief, development update. In the bottom you've got driver updates, so potential transfers, and then you've got just some welcome messages, and then on the right you've got a calendar, and up top you've got inbox, I'm guessing your own personal stats, the R&D tree, engine or component management in this case for this game. You've got your trophies or results, and then at the last one you've got like a photo mode or a video camera of sorts. So a bit of a reshuffle in terms of the menu there on the laptop. Anyway, with that, here is the driver selection screen. So when you do a race weekend, you pick which driver you want to race as, Jan Watmir or Victor Martins, depending on what you need for your championship results. Now, with this out of the way, we keep on browsing forward and we head into research development. Again, keeping these things separate. Here is the engineering department. Again, another little preview. Looking at it from a different vista or a different HQ or different part of the HQ more like. So again, you can see how they've split research and development, and then also assign upgrades, which we mentioned before. You get to pick which driver to assign them to, which we'll see in a bit, and that does have a knock-on effect for good or for bad, depending on what you decide. And then you've got your progress history and component management, which I hope there is some sort of component management also, not just for the engine, but for the actual body parts, the chassis parts. That would be quite cool. Now here is a little preview of the revamped, I won't say R&D tree, but basically the upgrade menu. So you still have the 4 elements, aero, chassis, powertrain and durability. They've just basically restructured the way it looks, which to be fair I actually quite like. A much cleaner presentation, and it's much more clearer to see. Few things to note here is the pricing. So you can see here you've got, depending on what you go for, single development, which would be 500 and 1,000, or dual development 450. So you're saving 50 grand, but it would be a longer development time, which is what they mentioned before. You have to pick depending on what you want to do. And I've got an interesting theory here. You can see also you get to choose the standard or rushed development, and there's some engine upgrades as well taking place. This one's going to be a single development by the looks of it, so 250k for a specific driver. And it does get me thinking, everybody here is going to have a different career mode, so this screen right here is very important. Okay, so if you look, we have unequipped parts, 2 remaining. You've got the tyre blankets and the hydraulics. Both drivers have 52 parts equipped, so you could basically choose whether you want to put 1 on each or share them, I'm assuming, depending on if you've made this upgrade as a shared upgrade or an individual upgrade. On the right, you have show driver performance, which I'm guessing potentially could be, and this is my theory here, individual car performance within your team. So for example, if you look at the name, Fulcrum AP, there's a drop-down triangle here, a little menu, which maybe gives you a more detailed look at each car. So let's say Jarno Opmeer's car and Victor Martin's car, because I don't see why not. There's a scenario here where you could basically have 2 entirely different cars within your team, because if you were to do upgrades, if you were to make them all single upgrades and apply each one to a different driver depending on what you're looking for, depending on their traits, strengths and weaknesses, there's a scenario here where if you don't do a single dual upgrade or dual development, you could have 2 different cars, right? So I'm understanding, or I'm going to guess, this little drop-down menu with show driver performance is showing you maybe each individual car. And it's not just that, that could be the case for every other team on the grid. So genuinely, all 20 cars could be different here, which I think is very exciting. Now in this, they show us a visual example of them putting the upgrade or applying it to Victor Martins. So let me think about that. I think that's very interesting. Here you can see, again, more assignable upgrades, and you've got certain parts which are movable, so you can swap them between drivers, and fixed parts which can't be moved. Now it seems like the aero is quite fixed, but the chassis, obviously, you can kind of interchange those parts. So we'll talk about personnel here. We have a 2-way split. They've merged it, and we now have stuff to do with drivers and stuff to do with workforce or your staff. Okay, so this is when things get interesting. This is the HQ of the Vista where, you know, your staff chill out. So here you have your driver lineup, the perception they have. Okay, so this is important. I want to go back to before when I mentioned the driver, or sorry, the team owner had the fan rating, and to manage that fan rating, there was the sentiment value. For the driver, I'm understanding that they have perception. That's kind of the, you know, what used to be a claim in past games. Now for drivers, it's going to be the perception and the way they're, you know, perceived within the paddock. That's going to be the rating system. So you can see the different values. Victor Martin seems a little bit happier than Jarno on all levels here compared to him, but they're both doing fairly well. You've got driver talks, which I'm guessing is the negotiations, the driver market to see who's available, and then of course the driver lineup, your own personal team. You've got the driver ratings comparison, their current contracts, and their perception breakdown, which I'm guessing is important for those contract negotiations. Now, here is a quick preview of the driver market tab. In this case, icons are enabled. You see we've got Coulthard, Button, Hakkinen, Villeneuve, Senna, Schumacher, so they're in the mix there. Aiden Jackson, of course, from Connor Sport. So they've got, it seems like, all the icons in this particular preview. Kelly Mayer, Sonny Hayes. So you can see we've also got the Apex GP boys in there. Felipe Massa. Definitely interesting. Now, this is going to be a little preview of the driver talks. So again, copy pasta, same animation or, you know, Vista as the driver career last year with the secret meetings. Now, this is the driver talks tab. You can see here, talks are level 3 in terms of Victor Martins, Jarno Opmeer, Hulkenberg and Jack Crawford. So you've got 4 drivers in play, and you're also working on a 5th with Kelly Mayer, which she has a meeting, level 2 meeting available. So that's quite cool. You've got your 2 drivers plus 3 on the go, and the perception seems positive all round. So that's quite cool. Again, you have a window of a negotiation with your drivers. Rather than having it all decided on one day with a quick auction, it's going to be a bit more layered, a bit more in-depth. This was the meeting, of course, with Kelly Mayer, which was level 2 or spec 2. Now I'm guessing going to level 3. And now we go into the workforce, which is the second tab of the personnel. Now this is interesting, very, very exciting, okay? F1 Manager, you allocate your staff. You can see to engineering here, the staff split has been assigned. So the bulk of it is engineering, of course, because of the aero chassis powertrain durability. Personnel and corporate, their respective spending, and you've got your income versus your outgoings to see if you're in profit, if you're doing well. Also, how many resource points you're going to get, the research time, and also development time. So there's a lot more depth here, and scaling this, you can see this little slider is going to have a knock-on effect in terms of how things work, and you can scale all of these departments depending on what you want to achieve. So this is awesome. This is the level of control that we've been asking for, which is really exciting. We also have some facility improvements here, so they've overhauled all of this entirely. So 3D printing, prototyping, reduce the time it takes to research upgrades by 15%, increases your workforce by 4, which I'm guessing has an added cost as well, so bear that in mind, and also takes a bit of time to complete. So really like this. Really awesome. Here is the graph of your spending, which I've never used in the past, but I hope we do start to use from now on. And again, I reference it to the cost cap and making sure you're not getting near it or breaking it. Now, this is corporate, the last one, okay? Title sponsor, finances, customization, okay? I've got a little bit of an inside scoop for this one, which I really like. So in here, you've got your finances, which, as we kind of saw before, it's just more of the same, but a different sort of breakdown, making sure everything lines up and you're not in the red. Now, with that aside, there's not just, what we know so far with the decal editor, but you can see here we have the livery editor and the number editor, okay? And it's going to add to that entire new concept of making a new car. And there's actually an entire deep dive coming up on the customization aspect of the game. So I think it's going to be a really big talking point, which we weren't shown much, but what we were shown is already very promising and very exciting. Here's some of the sponsors, and now they're much more colored. You can also see the customization. You can also change the size. And yeah, this is very positive and a huge step for the My Team customization, which also I'm guessing will carry over into F1 World. Again, the vistas, the new HQ. I'm keen to see if, when you level it up, how it's going to look, and we might get a bit of a preview here. So we go to facility improvements. This is phase 2 right now for engineering, and you can see here there's kind of these ones in progress, and then there's more to make. I'm guessing you have to complete all of them to go to phase 3. That's going to be my assumption, and that's quite exciting because in the past it was much more simple. And you can see here there's been an upgrade applied, and engineering now is phase 4. So this is what you're gonna get, what it's gonna look like once you get to, I'm gonna guess phase 4 is the highest one, or the maximum. Anyway, this is when things get interesting. So we go all the way back to the start of the video, or the start of the trailer more like, and I mentioned before there was owner perks, or owner training. This is what it is. So it's basically an R&D tree for yourself, the player, the owner, and you have a credit system which you basically spend however you need to extract what you want from your team. Essentially, I view it as pro clubs and you spending tokens or points on your player to improve it where you deem necessary to improve. You can see we have the little split in terms of the percentages, in terms of how you allocate your staff, or how your training is going to, have a knock-on effect to your staff and all of your members of the team. Now, again, a bit of focus on the accolades here. Again, like F1 24, you have these. So you've got seasons completed, constructors points, top 3 finishes in the constructors. Same as F1 24 basically, but applied to a more team context. And achieving these goals will give you big fan rating increases. Also, again, if we tie it back into the article, if you win rivalries, it will also increase your fan rating. So in this case, you can see we've hit an accolade goal, and it's improved the fan rating, and now it showcases a rivalry which we're currently winning versus Ferrari. Here is the fan rating and sentiment. So again, the sentiment is important, which isn't really mentioned in the article, but it kind of ties into the fan rating. You can see here you get fan bonuses depending on if you hit certain goals or certain events. So that's going to also change the way things work. So yeah, very exciting. And one thing which has been mentioned, this is sponsors, potential sponsors, 4 weeks remaining. Now, basically, like you can negotiate with different drivers for your lineup and essentially, auction them or put them against each other to try and get the best solution for your team and have meetings, you can also negotiate with sponsors over time. This is something which in the past was a very quick thing. You would basically get a menu flash up, you either renew your sponsor or manage and renegotiate with somebody else, and it would be done like that. This is now much more realistic, a much longer process where you negotiate with various sponsors, and yeah, it's very exciting. Also, one thing that's not mentioned regarding the sponsors, which I can tell you from my notes, is there is also a loyalty system. So if you also stand by and stick with certain sponsors for a long time, you'll unlock certain rewards, custom liveries, or little cool benefits, design extras, which, you know, are unique to how the car looks or how your team might look. So there is going to be a new element and depth to the title sponsors especially, which could change the way my team works. And then it just quickly goes on to show the iconic drivers, as we mentioned before. We are going to get a couple of freeze frames here where I can basically show you, by the way, this livery looks naughty. Very excited about this. That's a very good sign in terms of the customization aspect of my team. But here is when we get to pick. So, official drivers only, all driver icons enabled, or choose driver icons specifically. And this, you can see, can be recruited by AI teams. You've got a slider value of the frequency or how much you want them to, you know, tie into the story. Aiden Jackson, Callie Mayer, Sonny Hayes, Joshua Pierce, all the extras. You can see then Senna, Schumacher, Villeneuve, Button, Hakkinen, Massa, Weber, Coulthard, and then you've got Voisin, Zagazeta, Solov, the F3 drivers, and there's still a few more based off this drop down. I don't think it's the whole F3 grid, but there's a few more in there. So yeah, this is perfect. Absolutely perfect. You can basically set the AI to recruit the same as you. So if you only make the F3 drivers available, that's the only ones that AI can recruit. So you're going to get full customization of the experience at all times. And it also means we're all going to have a different career mode. All of us, look at this, career setup, my team, Connor Sport, or Apex GP. I believe this is my team. So you can see here, choose your team, and you can play as either one of the drivers. So that's pretty sick, doing a my team without actually using your own team. And here's a preview of the F1 movie with Apex GP shown in game, which, by the way, not exactly finalized. The steering wheel was the F2 steering wheel with the paddles out of position and the hands are not actually holding the wheel, but we'll turn a blind eye. They've also color graded it to match the look of the film, which we'll see in June. But yeah, pretty much that is everything. I'm going to do a quick recap here to show a few more images of the updated circuits. Now for this one, this is definitely confirmation of Miami. This bridge on the pit straight has changed, and also the curb at the last corner here is completely different. So I am 100% certain Miami has had an update. I think based off what we've seen and also from the other trailer, I'm pretty certain it's 5 tracks that I can say for now that we've seen. I think it's Bahrain, I think it's Miami, I think it's Imola, Australia, and Suzuka. I think those 5 have had updates, have been revamped. But guys, there we go. That is it for the video. We've covered the article and the trailer, and very exciting. But again, feet on the ground, handling AI. What are they like? The beta's out, but we can't talk about our impressions, so we'll see once we get hands-on gameplay in May. So subscribe to my channel for that, guys, when I do get early access to show you guys and give my thoughts on the initial gameplay impressions. Either way, for now, that'll be all. So if you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like on it. And I mentioned before, please subscribe for more F125 content. As always, a massive shout out to my channel members for supporting the channel. Check out the 2 videos on screen, and I'm going to rest my voice because I've done this video twice and I'm losing it. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you soon.